talk about the New York Giants. The Giants have finally decided to move on from Shane Bowen, their now former defensive coordinator. Let's go back a couple of years here. When they first hired Brian Daboll to be the head coach with this organization, Wink Martindale was the defensive coordinator. So when they went to the NFL playoffs and they won that playoff game over the Minnesota Vikings, Wink Martindale was the DC, and he did a very good job with this organization. He had some bad moments, but he knew when to put pressure on the opposing quarterback, and they were able to go out there and stop the run in certain situations. But a lot of reports came out that Brian Daboll and Wink Martindale were not on the same page, and they had a lot of heated discussions behind the scenes. Wink Martindale, he left. So Brian Daboll comes out, he brings in Shane Bowen, and the defense has not been the same since then. Going back to last season, they were 27th in rushing defense, 24th in total defense. And you guys can go back and look at the videos here. I was never a big fan of Shane Bowen. This was a terrible decision with Brian Daboll. But instead of moving on from him after last season, you bring him back. The New York Giants are currently 30th in total defense, 32nd in rushing defense. That is dead last in the NFL. And this is a team that has made a lot of changes to their defense over the last few years. Through the NFL draft and the same in free agency, you have Dexter Lawrence, one of the best defensive tackles in the game, and you cannot consistently stop the run. Brian Burns has been a very good pass rusher this season. He has 13 sacks on the year, 2 forced fumbles. You bring in Bobby Okereke, who is a very good linebacker with the Indianapolis Colts. He doesn't have the same impact with this organization. Some of that is on him, but at the same time, look at how he's being used with Shane Bowen. He's playing him so far off the ball. He was a very good and consistent linebacker against the run with the Indianapolis Colts. You have Kayvon Thibodeau, Paulson Adebo, Tyler Nubin, Javon Holland. You selected Deonte Banks in the first round. Cordell Flott has been a very good player this year in the secondary in New York. He's had some bad moments, but he's a very good cornerback, especially in that first game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And Deonte Banks, you can say that he is a bust, but the best year of his career came his rookie season. And Wink Martindale was the DC. He knew how to use him in one-on-one situations on the outside. When you drafted him out of Maryland, coming out of college, that is what he was. He wasn't this press zone corner. He's a press man corner, get him face-to-face with the wide receiver. He can come away with the football. He had a lot of pass deflections his rookie year. But since then, he's gotten worse. Once again, the players, they deserve some blame here. They're not blameless. But the coaching has been terrible with the New York Giants. 5 games this year. The New York Giants have lost because of this defense and because of the play calling with Shane Bowen. In the last 6 games, this defense is allowing 31 points a game. And you're 0-6 in your last 6 games. Something had to change. And shout out to Mike Kafka. He made this decision. He really wants to be the head coach with this organization long term, and I'm rooting for him. He had a blunder yesterday against the Detroit Lions. But this is more so about Shane Bowen, and we'll talk about Mike Kafka later on in this video. But you look at this situation here, going back to early on in the season. Against the Washington Commanders in Week 1, you allowed 21 points, 3 touchdowns. But look at how the Washington Commanders were able to dominate the clock in this game. 432 total yards, 220 rushing yards on the ground, 6.6 yards a carry. They couldn't stop the run. Jaden Daniels, the same with the other running backs in this team, they're gashing them. Jaden Daniels did not even do much in terms of passing the football around the field because he didn't have to. And they could not stop those screen passes underneath. Shane Bowen, you coach in this division. You should know the scheme and the system with Cliff Kingsbury, but he got outcoached. And the same with Brian Daboll. Russell Wilson got a lot of blame for that loss, and rightfully so. He was terrible in this game against the Commanders, but this defense did not help him out. Now you go to Week 2 against the Dallas Cowboys. This should have been a win for the New York Giants. Russell Wilson, his best game with the Giants, 30 of 41. He had 450 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He did have the 1 interception, but I'm not going to dock him for that interception. When you score 40 points in the NFL, 37 points, pardon me, that should be a win. You should always win that game. Your defense should find a way to help you out. You lost this game 40-37 in overtime, and you had the lead late in the fourth quarter. But Shane Bowen is playing the linebackers 10 yards off the ball. 10. And it's not your regular prevent defense. So now Jake Ferguson has so much separation underneath with Dak Prescott and the same to other wide receivers. They get into field goal range. It's the dumb decisions with Shane Bowen. And against the Dallas Cowboys, you allowed 135 rushing yards, 478 total yards of offense, 6 yards to carry. Dak Prescott had 361 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and he did have the interception. But you should have found a way to close out this game and win this matchup for your team when your veteran quarterback in Russell Wilson has had a career day, especially against that Dallas Cowboys defense at that point in time. And this was the icing on the cake against the Denver Broncos here. 33 points in the fourth quarter. The Denver Broncos only had 33 points in this game. And you lost to the Broncos because you had a fourth quarter collapse that we haven't seen before in the NFL in a very long time. You lost this game 33-32. 407 total yards for the Denver Broncos, 142 rushing yards for the Broncos, 5.4 yards a carry. And instead of moving on from Shane Bowen, this is what Brian Daboll did at the time. He cussed the kicker because he missed an extra point. And the kicker deserves some blame. But if you're going to have the same energy for your players, you have to have the same energy for your coaches. That's why I did not feel bad when the Giants moved on from Brian Daboll. He was a hypocrite. He came in, he benched Kenny Golladay. He benched Deonte Banks against the Steelers. He said that the effort wasn't there. The effort definitely hasn't been there with Shane Bowen. Against the Detroit Lions yesterday, Jameis Winston goes out, has a great game. Mike Kafka is calling up great plays constantly. Jameis Winston was 18-36, 366 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. But he also had a receiving touchdown, just a beautiful play call designed by the Giants. This was a trap game for the Lions. But your defense still found a way to hurt you in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter and in overtime. Now, when you face the Lions here, you may think of Jared Goff, their franchise quarterback, their offensive line, who has had problems this year in the interior, but they're still a very good offensive line bunch. You have St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. Those are the players that I'm worried about if I'm a defensive coordinator. They had no game plan for Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the best running backs in football, but there is no way in hell that he should have 14 yards to carry. 219 rushing yards in this game. 2 rushing touchdowns. He also had 45 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. St. Brown, that number 1 wide receiver, one of the best in the league as well, 150 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. You don't put roll coverage on St. Brown. You don't find a way to go out there and just basically try to alter your defense against Jahmyr Gibbs. You run the same off coverage constantly, and it got you burned yet again against the Lions. Against the Philadelphia Eagles in the rematch, you defeated them when you first faced them. Jackson Dart had a great game Thursday Night Football in the same with Cam. But in the rematch against the Eagles, 38 points allowed, 427 total yards of offense, 276 rushing yards. This is why Shane Bowen got fired today. No adjustments on defense. And they've put a lot of talent on this field to help him out. He was just incompetent as a defensive mind. And Mike Kafka made the right decision. But this is a terrible look for the New York Giants. You fire your head coach in Brian Daboll. And only just a couple weeks later, you fire your defensive coordinator. I feel bad for the fans here, and I feel bad for the players. 5 games Shane Bowen cost you. You were 2-10 on the season. You could easily have a winning record right now. You can have 7 wins on the year. And this is a Giants team. They're dealing with injuries. Malik Neighbors has missed time this year towards ACL against the Chargers. Jackson Dart has missed time with a concussion injury. This is even with Russell Wilson playing terrible. Jameis Winston came in even against the Green Bay Packers last week. You should have won that game. So there's talent here with the New York Giants, and they still have problems on the offensive end with their offensive line. But Mike Kafka, he can call up offensive plays. He had a blunder late in the game against the Detroit Lions. He went for it. He was being aggressive. I don't blame him. But make the Lions use those timeouts. You can tell that he really wants to be the head coach, but he has a lot to learn here. He already has a connection with Jackson Dart. So if the Giants go out there and they perform better for the rest of the season, they may let him be the head coach long term. And I don't see a coach right now that's being named in the NFL cycle that could be the next great head coach in the NFL. Last year, it was Ben Johnson. He went to the Bears. We heard a lot of rumors about Aaron Glenn being a top head coach. He's with the New York Jets right now. Clint Kubiak is a name that's being brought up, but I don't see him being a top coach currently right now in terms of being a top head coach in the future. He could be. I like Clint Kubiak as an offensive mind, but he still has some bad moments with the Seattle Seahawks that he has to work on. I think if he stays with Seattle for another year, they'll get him better prepared for being a head coach in the NFL. But Mike Kafka, they perform better and they can play hard for him like how they have based off of the game against the Packers and this game against the Lions. Let him be the head coach and see what he has. You keep him in-house. I like him as an offensive mind. I think Jackson Dart can be a franchise quarterback. This is the thing with Jackson Dart. He's his own worst enemy right now. Take care of yourself and take care of your head. Slide, get out of bounds. Don't take the unnecessary hits. And this was a problem that he had at Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin told him, you're going to get yourself killed, kid. Run out of bounds. And he did it for a couple weeks. After those 3 weeks, he said, forget that. I'm going to try to run over defenders. This is the NFL. They will break you. Andrew Luck is a prime example of that. Protect yourself, even though Andrew Luck was behind a terrible offensive line. RG3, look at him. He could not protect himself. He has the talent. He has the arm. He has the accuracy. He can move inside and outside the pocket. He has the tools to be a franchise quarterback. He has to protect himself. Jameis Winston said that he wants to stay in New York, and I think that's the right play here. You let him be the backup quarterback behind Jackson Dart. Jameis Winston is a great locker room guy, and you can see that he can still play in the NFL. It's just the turnovers with Jameis. And the interception last week against the Packers, that is not on Jameis Winston. Jalen Hyatt stopped his route. If he doesn't pull up on that route, it's maybe a different outcome. But once again, the Giants should have never been in that situation to begin with if their defense could finish out games. When it comes to Russell Wilson with Seattle, special football player. He was a top quarterback in the NFL for many years there. But it's time to retire. He is not that same player. He goes over to the Broncos. It didn't work out. And year one was terrible with Nathaniel Hackett, terrible offensive line. So in year two, they bring in Sean Payton. They bring in some better offensive linemen. He has some solid moments, but he still had a lot of bad decisions that he made on the field in terms of holding onto the football for a very long time, staring down wide receivers. So it didn't work out in Denver. He goes to the Steelers. He has some up and down moments with the Steelers. The Steelers, they were willing to move on to bring in Aaron Rodgers. And now he comes over to the Giants. Outside that Cowboys game, he did not look good with this organization. And it says a lot that Mike Kafka was willing to go out there and let Jameis Winston start games since Jackson Dart has been out with that concussion that he suffered against the Bears. So the quarterback room, it should be Jackson Dart, of course, the starting quarterback, Jameis Winston, the backup quarterback, and Russell Wilson should retire. Sports analyst, maybe he can work in the front office, maybe he can be a coach. But it's time for him to move on past being a quarterback in the NFL. And one more thing I want to bring up with the New York Giants with their defense. Abdul Carter only has a half a sack this season. And many people, they may look at that and they may say, well, he's a bust. Not necessarily. Abdul Carter has been a very good player this season in New York. A lot of the sacks that Brian Burns has, and I'm not taking anything away from him, he has been special this season. He's basically cleaning up off the pressure that Abdul Carter has caused. Abdul Carter can get to the quarterback on a consistent basis. It reminds me a lot of what Jared Verse did last year with the Rams. He only had 4 sacks, but he had a high pressure rate. You're seeing the same thing now with Abdul Carter, and he has been stout against the run. But when you have a defensive coordinator like Shane Bowen, who is putting him inside the slot cornerback position, and yes, they have done this before with him, when you have him as a spy against the Washington Commanders, you're taking away the great qualities that he gives you as a player. You let him put his hand in the dirt and you let him constantly get to the quarterback on a repeated basis. Coming out of college, Many people compared him to Michael Parsons. You let him be that Michael Parsons type of defensive player, and you move him around the line of scrimmage. You run different twists with him up front. You have him rush from the interior, and it frees up those edge rushers on the outside. He can be a dominant player. I know a lot of reports came out that he was late to meetings. He needs to clean that up. But Abdul Carter can be a special pass rusher with this team long term. Far as Kayvon Thibodeau, solid player, has not lived up to the first round hype for where they selected him in the first round. He's not a bust. He is just very hot and cold. When he's hot, he's a very good football player, but he is so inconsistent as a pass rusher. Only has 2.5 sacks this season. I was in favor of them moving on from Kayvon Thibodeau at the trade deadline, but he is still with this roster. But when you have all that talent up front, you were just expecting more out of this defense with Shane Bowen, and it just didn't pan out this way. And one trend that the NFL has to stop. When you draft a quarterback in the first round, if you have plans on drafting a quarterback, if you are ownership, and Mara has a lot to say so with this organization, it never made sense to me. Shane Bowen was a terrible defensive coordinator. But Brian Daboll and the same with your general manager and Joe Shane, they have overstayed their welcome. That's why you moved on from Brian Daboll. You let the general manager go out there and select this quarterback. This entire offseason, he was working with Brian Daboll. You fire him during the season. Other examples of this, the Carolina Panthers with Frank Reich and Bryce Young a couple of years ago. Frank Reich was a terrible head coach. They moved on from him his rookie year. Cam Ward this year. Coach Callahan. The entire offseason working with this head coach. Now he's gone. Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus. Rookie year, fired the head coach. Instead of just letting the head coach just stick around, you fire them at the end of the previous season with that general manager, and you start over. So now this quarterback can have a coach that he can work with for his entire rookie year, hopefully. And now you have a brand new general manager. You reset your clock. But by all the reports, it seems like Mara is still 100% all in with Joe Shane. And I disagree with that. But this was a tough situation for the New York Giants this year with terrible coaching with Brian Daboll, and the same with Shane Bowen. But the fact that you could have won 7 games up to this point says a lot about some of the talent on this roster, even when they are dealing with injuries. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the New York Giants moving on from Shane Bowen? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys to stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.